Hello everyone, welcome to all of you on this official platform of Legacy IAS Academy. First of all, good evening. So today we are going to discuss important topics from history and international relations. Fine. Okay, so what are the important topics which were there in the news in the last week? So first important news is related to birth anniversary of Pandit Eothi Thas. It is something related to the you can say reformer, social reformer. Okay. Second is related to Bhojshala temple. It is something related to early medieval India also. So we are going to discuss this issue as well. Then third, Veera Pasi. So this is related to early medieval India. This is something related to modern India. Fine. And this is also related to modern India. Okay. Now important topics from IR like Pragati 2026, important exercise. Okay. This is something important for your prelims. Another, Singapore as India's second largest export market. So it is important in GS paper 2. So these topics we are going to discuss today. Fine. Okay. Now, so our first topic is Bhojshala temple. So what is the main issue here? So recently the Madhya Pradesh High Court, they have declared disputed Bhojshala Kamal Maula Mosque, which is a complex in Dhar district, as a temple. That originally it was a temple and it was dedicated to goddess Vagdevi, Saraswati. Here Saraswati was worshipped as Vagdevi, and court actually quashed a 2003 archaeological survey of India order. 2003 में आर्कियोलॉजिकल सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया ने एक ऑर्डर दिया था. दैट ऑर्डर हैड अलाउड shared worship by Hindus and Muslims at this particular site. Clear? Now first of all we'll try to understand this issue. Okay. Now what is Bhojshala? है ना? Bhojshala क्या है? So Bhojshala is a protected, or you can say historical monument, which is located in Dhar district of MP. And it is also linked to famous Parmar king of Raja Bhoj. Yes, it is something related to Parmar king Raja Bhoj. It is something related to early medieval India as well. 1010 to 1055 AD. Clear? Now, what was Bhojshala? Bhojshala was having Nalanda style of learning center. It was also a Saraswati temple as well as Royal Academy. है ना? Royal Academy. ठीक है. So, according to historical tradition, if you see Bhojshala temple, so there are various inscriptions. So, Raja Bhoj, this Raja Bhoj created this as a center for Sanskrit education. So, he created it as a center for Sanskrit education. है ना? Second important thing, it was a seat of scholars. Seat of scholars. Fine. And third important thing, this temple or this center was dedicated. It was dedicated to goddess Saraswati. Now, goddess Saraswati was worshipped as Vagdevi here. Fine. So, as we know that goddess Saraswati is a symbol of knowledge. So, Bhojshala literally means hall of learning of Bhoj. Bhojshala means hall of learning of Bhoj. Fine. Clear? Now the question here is, why Bhojshala is in the news? Why Bhojshala is in the news? Try to understand that recently Madhya Pradesh High Court, they have ruled that Bhojshala Kamal Mola complex is fundamentally a temple of goddess Vagdevi or goddess Saraswati. एंड कोर्ट ने आर्कियोलॉजिकल सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया का 2003 का जजमेंट भी कैंसिल कर दिया है. क्लियर, विच यूज टू अलाउ अ शेयर्ड वर्शिप एट दिस प्लेस. फाइन. एंड कोर्ट ऑल्सो गेव साइट्स मैनेजमेंट फुल्ली टू आर्कियोलॉजिकल, लाइक ट्राई टू अंडरस्टैंड. तो उस जज कोर्ट ने पूरा इस साइट का मैनेजमेंट किसको दे दिया? आर्कियोलॉजिकल सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया. And it is also said, court also said, Place of Worship Act 1991 does not apply here. इस केस में Place of Worship Act apply नहीं करता. So this made the judgment nationally significant. Clear? Now the question here is how this dispute was started. है ना? How did the dispute begin? अभी इस dispute कैसे शुरू हुआ? Clear? So first phase 1. Now what was there in the phase 1? Raja Bhoj educational temple. Okay, this was Raja Bhoj educational temple. It was constructed in 11th century. Fine. Okay, so under Raja Bhoj, Bhojshala became major center of learning. It became Bhojshala became major Sanskrit center. Fine. And students here, scholars here, they used to study what? They used to study grammar. They used to study literature. They used to study grammar, literature, as well as philosophy here. है ना? So scholars, they used to study these subjects in this temple, in this center. So we can say this was not merely a temple. Okay, it was more like temple plus university plus royal academy. Clear? Now what are the evidences that supports that it was the ancient learning center? Evidences क्या है ना? तो पहला जो important evidence है, as you can see these images, Sarpband pillar, as you can see Sarpband inscription. सर्प बंद पिलर है ना. अब ये सर्प बंद पिलर क्या है? स्नेक लाइक ग्रामर चार्ट है ना. लाइक इमेजिन करिए, देयर वाज अ मिडिवल क्लासरूम ब्लैक बोर्ड विच वाज एक्चुअली कार्व्ड इनटू स्टोन. नाउ व्हाट वाज देयर इन दैट? 2 serpentine inscriptions are there. Okay, and these serpentine inscriptions, they are having Sanskrit alphabets also. They are having what? Sanskrit alphabets. Fine. There was also the noun endings. Noun endings were also there. Then verb forms also written. This actually represent what? That this was the educational center. So this pillar was worked almost like the stone textbook. इसको हम क्या मान सकते हैं? It is like stone textbooks. Fine. Okay. Second important thing is Prakrit odes to Kurm avatar. Now what is this Kurm avatar? The walls of the temple, or you can say center, also contain inscription where they have praised the Kurma. Kurma क्या है? A tortoise incarnation of Vishnu. Fine. Tortoise incarnation of Vishnu. And poems are written in which language? Prakrit language. That is why Prakrit odes. And this actually indicates active Hindu religious as well as literary culture. Active Hindu religious as well as literary culture. Third, Sanskrit drama on stone. It is also written Sanskrit drama. Clear? And this is one of the surprising findings. Mihrab area. Mihrab area is the most ornate place in mosque architecture. It contains slabs with dramatic theatrical composition. And this was actually written by whom? A royal tutor, Madana, ने लिखा था. These kind of questions UPSC can ask. Royal tutor, Madana. Now, Madana, now remember this thing. Madana was the disciple of Jain scholar Ashadhara. He was the Jain disciple of Ashadhara. And from the reign of, he belongs to the reign of King Arjuna Varma. He belonged to the reign of a king Arjuna Varma. So this basically tells us that the site actually preserved Hindu learning, Sanskrit center, and also Jain intellectual influence was there. So basically we can say Bhojshala was intellectually diverse in nature. Now the question here is, then why these changes came? So what happened during the Islamic rule? है ना? What happened during Islamic rule? Now try to understand. Muslims, they used to identify as mosque, है ना. मुस्लिम्स इसको क्या मानते हैं? मॉस्क मानते हैं. कैसे? कौन सा मॉस्क? कमल मौला मॉस्क. दे यूज्ड टू कॉल इट एज कमल मौला mosque. Fine. Okay. So historical claim, they actually says that the mosque foundation was laid around 1306 to 1307. So the foundation of mosque, foundation was laid around 1306 to 1307. Fine. This was there. तो अब यहां पे टू मेमोरीज है ना. देयर आर टू मेमोरीज. वन इज रिलेटेड टू हिंदू व्यू, अनदर मुस्लिम व्यू. अब यहां पे टू व्यूज आ जाएंगे. फाइन. हिंदू व्यू एज वेल एज मुस्लिम व्यू. नाउ हिंदू व्यू क्या कहता है? दैट दिस वाज ओरिजिनली अ सरस्वती टेंपल as well as learning center. Muslim view क्या कहता है? That this is Kamal Mola Mosque established in Islamic rule. ये दो dispute आ गए. So try to understand, the dispute here is not merely about the land. It is about the historical identity as well as religious memory. It is related to historical identity and religious memory. Fine. Okay. Next, the Saraswati idol mystery. Now we'll talk about this thing also, है ना. So during 20th century, excavations, है ना, what we have found? We have found the intricately carved idol. That is this idol, which is called as the idol of goddess Saraswati, also called as Vagdevi. Fine, also called as Vagdevi. This idol was discovered at Bhojshala complex. ये कहां पे हमें मिला? Bhojshala temple में. Clear? Now, where is this idol today? Today, this idol is housed in British Museum. Today, it is housed in British Museum. Fine. So for many Hindus, this actually became important evidence which actually linked Bhojshala with the Saraswati worship. Fine. Now the question here is, what do historical records say? Now one key source, okay, that is the Imperial Gazetteer of India 1908. It actually recorded that the mosque structure appeared to be built using the remains of an early Hindu temple. कि ये जो mosque बनाया गया है, it was actually created after demolishing Hindu temple and the remains of that temple were used in constructing the mosque. Fine. So, sculptured slabs and carved stones, these things were reused in floors, walls as well as mihrab. Mihrab क्या है? It is a kind of prayer niche. Clear? Just try to understand, just imagine renovating a building with reusing material from an older structure. Clear? This is what Gazetteer described. Clear? Now the question here is, what was the 2003 Archaeological Survey of India arrangement? Clear? Before this judgment, अभी जो judgment आया उसके पहले क्या judgment था, उसके पहले क्या follow किया जाता था? This site actually followed shared worship system, है ना? What was the arrangement? Shared worship system or shared worship arrangement. Clear? So, Archaeological Survey of India in 2003, it actually allowed, so they allowed what? कि Hindus, they can worship at this site on Tuesdays. Hindus यहां पे वर्शिप कर सकते हैं ट्यूसडे को. Muslims, they can pray here on Fridays. ये चीज अलाउ किया था आर्कियोलॉजिकल सर्वे ऑफ इंडिया. दे कैन namaz, they can perform namaz on Fridays. Clear? So it was time sharing religious arrangement. समझ में आ रहा है ना? Time sharing religious arrangement था. Now this thing, so this was actually created to maintain the peace while dispute was continued. Fine, while dispute was continued. ठीक है. अब हाई कोर्ट ने इसे अभी कैंसिल क्यों किया? Why did the High Court cancel it? कोर्ट ने कहा 2003 Archaeological Survey of India order was legally weak, है ना? According to court, if the site historically, ये वर्ड याद रखना, अगर site historically legally protected monument है with temple character, so administrative sharing cannot override that finding. तब administrative sharing उस चीज को override नहीं कर सकती. That is why recently court cancelled this arrangement. Now there is a big legal question. Why doesn't the Places of Worship Act apply? ये काफी सारे लोगों में क्वेश्चन होगा कि ये वाला एक्ट यहां पे अप्लाई क्यों नहीं हो रहा है. एंड दिस इज द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट लीगल पॉइंट, बिकॉज मेनी पीपल आस्क इफ प्लेसेस ऑफ वर्शिप एक्ट फ्रीजेस रिलीजियस कैरेक्टर. प्लेसेस ऑफ वर्शिप एक्ट क्या करता है? इट एक्चुअली फ्रीजेस रिलीजियस कैरेक्टर as of 15th August 1947. Then why not here? Then why it is not applicable in this case? Bhojshala temple में क्यों नहीं अप्लाई कर रहा है? So the answer is actually section 4 subclause 3. This law, अब law क्या कह रहा है? Law actually excludes ancient and historical monument protected act 1958, है ना? AMASR Act, Ancient and Historical Monuments Protected under AMASR Act of 1958. यहां पे इसे प्रोटेक्ट किया गया है. तो कोर्ट ने क्या कहा? कोर्ट एक्चुअली सेड भोजशाला इज एक्चुअली प्रोटेक्टेड अंडर एंशिएंट मॉन्यूमेंट एंड आर्कियोलॉजिकल साइट्स रिमेन्स एक्ट. कौन सा एक्ट है ये? दिस एक्ट, Ancient Monument and Archaeological Site Remains Act of 1958, है ना? कोर्ट ने ऐसा कहा. Clear? So this act actually freezes the provision of Places of Worship Act of 1991. So here Places of Worship Act does not apply. This is the legal core of the verdict. Clear? अब आप कहेंगे सर हाउ दिस इश्यू इज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम बाबरी केस, है ना? कोर्ट ने खुद इसे हाईलाइट किया. बाबरी डिस्प्यूट जो है एंड भोजशाला टेम्पल डिस्प्यूट, बाबरी केस was related to ownership or title suit. भोजशाला केस it is related to writ petition. ये याद रखिएगा, writ petition. Babri case talks about who owns property, but Bhojshala temple talks about right to worship. On the other hand, Babri case civil title litigation. Clear? Babri dispute is related to civil title litigation. On the other hand, Bhojshala temple issue, it is under the constitutional remedy under Article 226. Fine. So, बाबरी केस में क्या था? बाबरी मस्जिद केस में प्रॉपर्टी ओनरशिप का डिस्प्यूट था, बट इन केस ऑफ भोजशाला रिलीजियस एक्सेस, है ना, वर्शिप राइट डिस्प्यूट की बात की गई. फाइन. So this is an important UPSC discussion, or you can say important thing for UPSC examination. Clear? Now there is one more thing. There was one Elan in 1935. So what about 1935 Elan? Elan क्या होता है? Official proclamation. Clear? And this was in 1935 one official proclamation or Elan issued by Princely State of Dhar. किसने इशू किया था? प्रिंसली स्टेट ऑफ धर. बट कोर्ट रिजेक्टेड दिस आर्ग्यूमेंट. कोर्ट ने रिजेक्ट क्यों किया? रीजन है इसके पीछे. प्रोक्लेमेशन वाज एक्चुअली लिंक्ड टू गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1935 which became operational only in गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया एक्ट 1935 ऑपरेशनल ओनली इन 1937. तो कोर्ट कंसीडर प्रोक्लेमेशन लीगली वीक था. समझ में आ रहा है? क्योंकि ये एनफोर्स में कब आया? 1937 में. सो दिस प्रोक्लेमेशन वाज वीक. नाउ डू यू थिंक दैट डिड दिस कोर्ट, हाई कोर्ट, इग्नोर मुस्लिम कंसर्न्स? सो द आंसर इज नो. कोर्ट डिड नॉट इग्नोर द कंसर्न फॉर मुस्लिम कंसर्न को इग्नोर नहीं किया कोर्ट ने. कोर्ट एक्चुअली ट्राइड टू बैलेंसिंग द कंपीटिंग राइट्स, है ना? कोर्ट ने ट्राई किया है. Now, court actually directed the state consider allotting for Muslims. कोर्ट ने क्या कहा? Consider allotting. Fine. Second important thing, court also asked the state to provide alternative suitable land in Dhar. Provide alternative suitable land in Dhar, means MP region. Clear? And why court said that? For construction of a mosque or prayer facility. So basically this judgment try to bring heritage preservation, worship rights as well as social peace. समझ में आ रहा है ना? ये याद रखिएगा. Now the question here is, who controls Bhojshala now? Court granted full authority to whom? Archaeological Survey of India. Now Archaeological Survey of India will now handle preservation of monument, administrative control and regulation of access. And they will also protect 11th century architecture. And there are various evidences and activities which linked to Sanskrit learning. Fine. So this is about this issue. Fine. So now we are going to practice some question based on this. So the first question here is, with reference to the recent judgment concerning Bhojshala Kamal Maula complex, consider the following statement. First, the protection granted under the Ancient Monument and Archaeological Site Remains Act 1958 automatically freezes the religious character of a monument as it existed on 15 August 1947. So this statement is wrong. Clear? Which act freezes the character? That is Places of Worship Act, not this act. So this is wrong. Second, section 4 subclause 3 of Place of Worship Act 1991 excludes ancient and historical monuments covered under the this Amritsar Act of 1958 from its ambit. This is correct. Third, this Madhya Pradesh High Court treated the Bhoshala matter primarily as a title suit. Title suit किसके लिए था? बाबरी मस्जिद. Here, place of worship, right to worship, writ petition. है ना? So this is wrong here. So how many statements are correct here? Only second. So option B is the correct answer. Next. So next question, है ना? So before starting with the next question, first we'll discuss. So this question is actually incomplete, है ना? So we'll practice some other questions, है ना? Okay. So Veera Pasi. Now the next topic is related to the Veera Pasi, है ना? Now what is the event or what is the context of Veera Pasi? First of all, recently a statue of Veera Pasi regarded as a forgotten hero of the revolt of 1857. Now it is something related to modern India, an important topic, revolt of 1857. Fine. Okay. So this statue was unveiled in Rai Bareli in UP, bringing renewed attention to his contribution to India's freedom struggle. Now the first question here is, who was Veera Pasi? Veera Pasi was a Dalit freedom fighter. From which community? From Pasi community. Okay. Present day Rai Bareli district, UP. Now what was his background? He was born on 11th November 1835 and village. Okay. What was the name of the village? Lodwari village, Rai Bareli, UP. His family was poor. He belonged to poor family of Pasi community. Clear? Now, Pasi community is actually important in UP. It is the second largest Dalit group in UP after Jatwas. Jatwas के बाद यही आते हैं second largest Dalit community में. Historically, many Pasis, they worked as farmers, they worked as soldiers, village protectors also, but today they are also an important social and electoral group in the state. Fine. So we can say Veera Pasi was actually a grassroots warrior. है ना? He was not a king or a prince. We can say he was a grassroots warrior. Clear? Who was someone from the ordinary background who entered in the history through courage. है ना? Revolt of 1857. Fine. Okay. Now next important thing is, what was his connection with Rana Beni Madhav Baksh Singh? अब इनका कनेक्शन क्या था? वीरा पासी क्लोजली एसोसिएटेड विद राणा बेनी माधव बख्श सिंह, हु वाज द रूलर ऑफ शंकरपुर एस्टेट, प्रेजेंट डे इन राय बरेली, है ना? नाउ यू कैन इमेजिन दिस रिलेशनशिप, है ना, लाइक अ ट्रस्टेड मिलिट्री कमांडर एंड अ लॉयल कंपैशन. क्लियर? सो राणा बेनी माधव की अगर हम बात करें, ही वॉज एक्चुअली वन ऑफ द रीजनल लीडर्स. ही वॉज वन ऑफ द regional leaders, है ना? He was one of the regional leader who challenged the British authority in the revolt of 1857, and Veera Pasi stood beside him. Fine? Okay. So now the question here is, what happened during the revolt of 1857? See, revolt of 1857 was the first large scale revolt. Clear? We can say it was the first large-scale uprising against the British performed by various communities like sepoys, clear, peasant groups, soldiers, local rulers, as well as different communities. Clear? So, according to the local folklore as well as oral tradition, Veera Pasi played a very important role in revolt of 1857. And there is a famous rescue story. अब वो story क्या है? This story actually says that Rana Beni Madhav Baksh Singh was captured or cornered by the British forces. इनको पकड़ लिया था British forces ने. Veera Pasi showed extraordinary bravery and rescue किया था Rana Beni Madhav Baksh Singh को from British captivity. So it is like a movie scene, आप कह सकते हैं, है ना, जहां पे loyal commanders, he entered into the danger, है ना, and which he may know that he may never return after that. Clear? but he actually chooses his duty over safety. ये हमें याद रखना होगा, है ना, ये याद रखिएगा. Now the question here is, why were the British afraid of him, है ना? So local account they say British declared a reward of 50,000 for capturing Veera Pasi, है ना? This was actually enormous amount in 19th century. 19th century में बहुत बड़ा amount था ये. And the reward of this size actually tells us something important, that British considered him dangerous and influential. कि ये dangerous personality तो था. Clear? So he was not just seen as a one rebel soldier, but someone who actually inspired the resistance against the British. Clear? So what happened after his death? The story says that Veera Pasi died while protecting Rana Beni Madhav Baksh Singh from the British forces. So his life ends not in surrender but in battle and loyalty. That is why he is remembered today. Veera. Veera means brave or historic. Clear? This is the relevance of Veera Pasi today. So why is Veera Pasi important today? Recently a statue of Veera Pasi was unveiled in Rai Bareli district of Uttar Pradesh, and this actually brought the attention back to his forgotten contribution. That is the we can say the relevance of Veera Pasi. है ना? So now we'll practice some questions. Okay. So what are the important questions Veera Pasi से related कौन-कौन से हो सकते हैं? See, UPSC can ask you the question related to Veera Pasi, like his contribution in as a local soldier, है ना, a local warrior. He is something associated with peasant. Clear? So these kind of things UPSC can ask in the examination. Clear? So he belonged to the Pasi community, which is the second largest group after Jatwas. Fine? So this is important for your examination. Fine? So now we are going to discuss another important topic, that is birth anniversary of Pandit Eothi Thas. Who was Pandit Eothi Thas? Clear? So as you can see here, recently Tamil Nadu Chief Minister, as you can see, he paid floral tributes to Pandit Eothi Thas on his 181st birth anniversary. Clear? We can say the Pandit Eothi Thas actually one of South India's earliest anti-caste thinker, and he was also pioneer of Dalit awakening. Fine. So first we need to understand who was Pandit Eothi Thas. So now we'll try to understand this. He was a social reformer, anti-caste activist, thinker, writer, journalist, and pioneer in Dalit Buddhist movement in South India. He is actually remembered as an early champion of social justice, है ना? Early champion of dignity and self-respect. Clear? Now, his birth and background. He was born on 20th May 1845. What was the name of the place? Thousand Lights in Madras. Clear? That is today Chennai. And during this period, British rule was there in Madras Presidency. Now, he belonged to a time when untouchability and caste discrimination was deeply rooted in Indian society. And that is why he started fighting against the caste discrimination, as you can see here. Clear? Just try to understand, society was a ladder. है ना? Some people were placed at the top with privileges, others they were pushed to the bottom and they denied dignity, education as well as opportunities. In this scenario, Pandit Eothi Thas challenged this ladder itself. He believed human dignity is more important than caste identity. है ना? ये इनका कहना था. So he actually worked for the equal rights. है ना? He worked for equal rights, social equality, fine, social equality, also ending untouchability, empowerment of oppressed communities. Clear? So we can say, unlike reformers who only asked for sympathy, he actually demanded recognition as well as justice. Fine. Now, what was his revolutionary idea? His revolutionary idea was Dalits were originally Buddhist. Eothi Das, he actually believed that oppressed caste or oppressed class in Tamil society were originally Buddhist and they were later absorbed into the caste hierarchy. है ना, ओरिजिनली बुद्धिस्ट थे, बाद में उन्हें कास्ट हायरार्की में लाया गया. नाउ व्हाई वाज दिस आइडिया पावरफुल? अगर मैं आपसे पूछूं व्हाई वाज दिस आइडिया पावरफुल, सी his argument was merely not religious. Fine, it can be historical as well as political. So he was effectively saying actually oppressed communities were not born inferior. Oppressed communities inferior born थोड़ी ना हुए. History had erased their original identity. History ने इनकी original identity को खत्म कर दिया. Clear? So we can say this became the foundation for Buddhist revival movement. It can be considered as, so this laid the foundation for Buddhist revival movement. Fine. Okay. Now he built various organizations also. Clear? Now he did not stop at speeches. He created various organizations or institutions. First important organization, Advaita Nand Sabha. So as a young reformer he organized depressed classes through Advaita Nand Sabha. Purpose क्या था इसका? The purpose to resist social discrimination, oppose pressure of religious conversion, then explore Advaita ideas which can actually challenge the caste barriers and create awareness among the oppressed groups. Clear? So it is like early social awareness platform. Early social awareness platform. Fine. Now next he created Dravida Mahajan Sabha in 1891. So he also created Dravida Mahajan Sabha in 1891. ठीक है. What was the purpose of this organization? इस organization का purpose क्या था, है ना? What was the purpose? First, to create political awareness. है ना? To create what? Political awareness. Then also talked about right for oppressed communities. Rights for oppressed communities. And third important thing was social mobilization. Social mobilization, that was the purpose. Fine. So this was a time when marginalized groups had no organized voice. So this Sabha became a voice of marginalized people. Clear? And then he created Shakya Buddhist Society in 1898. This society was constructed in Madras region. है ना? कहां पे ये सोसाइटी बनी? मद्रास में. एम क्या था? What was the aim of this society? Revival of Buddhism. Fine. Revival of Buddhism. Then second aim, social reform. Social reform. Then anti-caste mobilization. Fine. Anti-caste mobilization was also one of the purpose. Then cultural awakening among oppressed communities. So basically, this society has become a major center for Dalit Buddhist thought in South India. समझ में आ रहा है ना? Then next important thing, his census demand, a battle over identity. This was one of the fascinating contribution during 1881 census. Government classified communities into religious categories. So Eoti Thas objected and he actually argued that oppressed and outcast communities should not automatically be listed as Hindus. कि ऑप्रेस कास्ट को आउटकास्ट को आप हिंदूज लिस्ट बिल्कुल भी नहीं करेंगे. इंस्टेड ही डिमांडेड दे शुड बी आइडेंटिफाइड एज ओरिजिनल तमिल्स, है ना, दे शुड बी आइडेंटिफाइड एज ओरिजिनल तमिल्स. नाउ व्हाई डज दिस मैटर? क्लियर? सी, सेंसस क्लासिफिकेशन से क्या होता है? सेंसस क्लासिफिकेशन एक्चुअली शेप्स आइडेंटिटी, it actually shapes representation, it actually shapes social recognition and also political voice. Clear? So we can say identity is also a matter of power. Fine, remember this thing, identity is also a matter of power. Fine, this is the scenario. Next, journalism as a weapon, है ना? So Eoti Thas, he actually realized if ideas do not reach people, so reforms remains weak. तो अब लोगों के पास कैसे आइडियाज पहुंचाया जाए? So there is a need for press. Fine, that is why he entered into journalism. And the most important, Oru Paisa Tamizam, 1907. In 1907, he launched a Tamil journal called as Uru Paisa Tamizam. Clear? Later, it was renamed as Tamilan. Clear? Now, why it is important? First of all, see, this journal became a platform for anti-caste discourse. है ना? Platform for anti-caste discourse. Second, platform for political awareness. Social justice, etc. Fine. This is the purpose of this platform. Clear? So, आप कह सकते हैं it was like a social media of that time. This much is clear? Now, the question here is, why is Eoti Thas important? He was far ahead of his time. Clear? Before self-respect and Dalit assertion, before self-respect movement, Dalit assertion became major movements. Eoti Thas had already begun questioning caste hierarchy, religious identity, historical exclusion, social inequality. So his ideas actually later influenced social justice movement, self-respect politics, Dalit consciousness in South India. This is his relevance. This much is clear to all of you, है ना? So that is the importance of Eoti Thas. Clear? तो basically इन्होंने एक रिफॉर्म लेकर आए लोअर कास्ट पीपल के लिए सोसाइटी में. समझ में आ रहा है? ये हमें ध्यान रखना होगा. क्लियर? ठीक है. नाउ next important topic, Singapore as India's second largest export market. So what was there in the news? What happened here? West Asia War, Singapore pipped UAE as India's second largest export destination. Clear? Now, so what happened here? First, try to understand. As we know that a prolonged West Asia War actually disrupted trade and oil transportation. So West Asia War, so this region, Strait of Hormuz. So West Asia War disrupted trade and oil transportation. Fine. This is the scenario. And a major problem is related to Strait of Hormuz. This is the major problem. Now, why Strait of Hormuz is important? See, this Strait of Hormuz, first of all, it is a narrow passage. It is a narrow passage, but it is, this strait is having huge economic importance. Clear? First of all, this Strait of Hormuz, if you see, what is the location? It actually lies between Iran and Oman region. Fine? Lies between Iran and Oman region. Now, this is one of the important maritime choke points also. Why? See, around 1/5 of global oil, 1/5 of global oil, 1/5 of global oil used to pass through this strait only, that is Strait of Hormuz. Clear? So when conflict disrupted this passage, shipping क्या हो गई? It became risky. Freight cost increase हो गई, delivery slow हो गई, delivery becomes slower. Then Gulf trade also suffered. This was like losing a major trade way or trade highway. Clear? ठीक है. Now, why we are saying that Singapore overtakes UAE? Try to understand. Earlier, UAE was India's second largest export destination after United States of America. Clear? But because Gulf routes were disrupted, export to UAE fell by 36%. Export to Singapore jumped by 180%. तो इसका outcome क्या हुआ? As a result, USA first largest export destination and Singapore second largest export destination. Clear? Now the question here is, why such a dramatic rise? See, because Singapore, if you see, Singapore actually works like Asia's logistic airport. Singapore किस तरीके से काम करता है? Asia's logistic airport के तौर पर. Clear? So goods from India, they reach Singapore and then distributed to worldwide. First goods, they are sent from India to Singapore, then they are distributed to worldwide. That is why Singapore is like a giant railway junction for global trade. Clear? Now, why Singapore benefited so much? आप लोग बताइए पहले कि सिंगापुर क्यों सबसे ज्यादा बेनिफिट करेगा? ऑनलाइन स्टूडेंट जितने भी यूट्यूब पे ऑडियंस है सभी लोग आंसर दीजिए. Singapore has some major you can say advantages. What are the major advantages? First, global transshipment hub. Fine. Global transshipment hub. And then India-Singapore free trade agreement. India-Singapore free trade agreement. Now, global transshipment hub, try to understand. Singapore is one of the world's biggest ports. Clear? Transshipment hub का मतलब क्या है? This transshipment hub, it means cargo arrives there first. Transshipment का मतलब समझिएगा. Cargo arrives there first and then reloaded and sent elsewhere. Fine, this is called as transshipment hub. For example, Indian products may travel from India to Singapore and then from Singapore to other parts of the world like Europe, West Asia, East Asia, Pacific markets like this. So Singapore is like a transshipment hub. Clear? So why it is important? Because right now Gulf route is actually facing problem. That is why Singapore remained efficient. Fine. Second is India-Singapore free trade agreement. See, India and Singapore, they have already signed a special trade agreement which is called as SECA, Comprehensive Economic Cooperation Agreement. Clear? अब इसका पर्पस क्या है? It actually reduces trade barriers. Clear? It reduces what? It actually reduces trade barriers. It is like a fast track trade lane. Clear? And because of this agreement, lower tariffs are there. Low tariffs. Then easier business movement. Fine. Easier business movement also. Greater investment. Yes, that is also correct. Greater investment. And then the most important thing, fast trade processing. Faster trade processing. Clear? Now, apart from this, India also changed where it buys oil. Yes. This crisis affected not only export but also energy import. Earlier, India depended heavily on Middle Eastern crude oil. But when the supplies became uncertain, now India diversified. Instead of relying mainly on Gulf countries, India expanded sourcing from Oman, Peru as well as Nigeria. इसको हम क्या कहते हैं? This is called as energy diversification. Clear? इसका मतलब क्या है? If one shop closes, you have already alternatives. समझ में आ रहा है? Next is economic pressure on India. See, this crisis created the pressure on India's economy. है ना? Crisis created pressure on India's economy. Fine. How crisis created pressure? इससे हमारा क्या हुआ? Import bill, rising import bill. Imports हमारे क्या हो गए? Expensive हो गए. Oil became expensive. India import much of its crude oil. तो अब इससे क्या होगा? Import अगर expensive है, so oil prices will also rise. Clear? Higher import expenditure, bigger import bill. And second, rupee is under pressure. Rupee under pressure. Now, when we say rupee under pressure, which means because now India need, अब अगर oil खरीदना है आपको डॉलर में पे करना पड़ेगा, so now India needed more dollars to buy oil. तो इसीलिए डिमांड फॉर यूएस डॉलर इट गेट्स इंक्रीज्ड. अब यूएस डॉलर की डिमांड इंक्रीज हो जाएगी तो रूपी क्या हो जाएगा? वीक हो जाएगा. क्लियर? सो रिसेंटली इंडियन रूपी डेप्रिशिएटेड 5.2%. depreciated 5.2% against US dollar since February 2026. Clear? Suppose if 80 rupees earlier bought $1, है ना, अब कितना हो गया? I think 94 और 96. तो अब और ज्यादा आप रूपी पे क्या पड़ेगा? असर पड़ेगा, है ना, प्रेशर होगा. क्लियर? And a weaker rupee actually makes import even more expensive. This is the scenario. Now, what is the government response? Higher import duty on precious metals. Precious metals like gold, silver and all. Import duty high कर दी गवर्नमेंट ने ताकि लोग ज्यादा खरीदे ना, है ना. इससे हमारे जो फॉरेन रिजर्व है वो क्या होगा? कम से कम खर्च होगा, है ना. So gold and precious metals consume foreign exchange, so duties were increased to discourage excessive imports. Second, petrol and diesel prices increase because oil marketing companies को ये बोल दिया गया, allow कर दिया गया to raise the prices. Petrol prices got increased, diesel prices also increased, and this was the first retail fuel price increase in 4 years. Why? Because importing crude oil had become costlier now. Fine. Apart from this, India-Singapore economic partnership, which is much bigger than the trade. See, the relationship between India and Singapore, it is not only about the export. Clear? India and Singapore relation is actually, it is deeply economic एंड स्ट्रेटेजिक इन नेचर, है ना, आप कह सकते हैं इकोनॉमिक एंड फाइनेंशियल पार्टनरशिप। फाइन, economic and financial partnership. Now trade growth under SECA, comprehensive economic cooperation agreement, trade growth हुई है ना। if you take the digits of 2004 and 5, the trade between India and Singapore was around $6.7 billion. But if you take the digits of 2024 to 2025, the trade now it is around $34.3 billion. Fine. So this has been increased. This is more than 5 times growth. Fine. So India is 6th largest trading partner of Singapore. Fine. Now, next important thing, Singapore, India's biggest FDI source. This is also correct. Singapore is also India's largest source of foreign direct investment. Like in financial year 2024 to 25, $14.94 billion investment was there. Foreign companies, they are putting long-term money into factories. They are putting their money into startups, infrastructure. They are putting their money into technology, services, etc. है ना? So Singapore act as a major investment gateway into India. Fine. Then there are stronger institutional cooperation also between India and Singapore. As you can see, stronger institutional cooperation like Invest India office in Singapore was established in September 2024. Purpose क्या था? It will help Singapore investors to invest in India. Fine. Second important office, Singapore Business Federation office, it is in Bangalore, which was opened in November 2025. It was first Indian office. And what was the purpose? Business networking, trade promotion, समझ में आ रहा है, investment facilitation, all these things. Clear? Then apart from this, fintech revolution, UPI meets Singapore, India's first operational cross-border person-to-person payment system. Which means a person in India and a person in Singapore, they can directly transfer their money using linked payment system. Just like UPI is going international, this is especially useful for workers, student, family, small businesses, इन सब चीजों के लिए काफी ज्यादा useful है ना? And with this, they are cooperating into the trade, digital trade cooperation. कैसे? India and Singapore, they are now connecting digital commerce system to ONDC Proxtera connectivity. Purpose क्या होगा? The purpose will be, it is going to enable international digital retail and e-commerce integration. Then Gift Connect will also be there. Gift Connect, this is going to link NSC in India with Singapore exchange stock market. Clear? So Nifty related products and liquidity sharing will also be there, which means India and Singapore, they are actually sharing the financial markets, which is going to become more interconnected in nature. Fine. Apart from this, trade, trust and electronic bills of lading. So traditionally shipping required peels of paper document, but trade trust से क्या होगा? It will allow electronic bills of lading, digital verification हो जाएगा and faster shipping documentation. Clear? So which means they are going to replace the paper shipping files with secure digital passports for cargo. है ना? ये relevance रहेगा. Clear? So overall we can say geopolitics shape economics. West Asia conflict disrupted India's traditional trade routes. So instead of remaining dependent on one region, India shifted export towards Singapore. India diversified oil imports. India expanded fintech and digital trade and also strengthened the economic resilience. So Singapore rise is not merely a trade static. It actually reflects India's broader strategy of supply chain diversification, economic resilience and also deeper Indo-Pacific economic integration. This is the relevance of India-Singapore partnership. Fine. I hope this much is clear to all of you. This is the relevance of India-Singapore partnership. Clear? That is why it was there in the news. Now the last topic that we need to understand, Pragati 2026. So what happened recently? Recently, multinational military exercise, which is also called as Pragati 2026, began at Umroi military station, where in Meghalaya, and bringing together India and 12 other partners. That means total 13. India and 12 other partner nations to strengthen regional military cooperation. And Pragati stands for Partnership of Regional Armies for Growth and Transformation in Indian Ocean region. Fine. तो प्रगति क्या है? It is a multinational military exercise led by India. ये याद रखिएगा. It is the multinational military exercise led by India. Fine. Clear? Now, where it is being held? The exercise began at Umroi military station, which is in Meghalaya. अब क्वेश्चन क्या है? Why मेघालय? है ना, सभी को पता होना चाहिए मेघालय क्यों. Because if you see, Meghalaya region is actually hilly, semi-mountainous, as well as jungle terrains are there. This is actually ideal for practicing the real life military operations and also especially counter terrorism missions के लिए भी important है. Clear? Now, who is participating? So, total 13 countries are there. Beside India, participating nations are Bhutan, Cambodia, Indonesia, then Laos, Malaysia, Maldives, Myanmar, Nepal, Philippines, Seychelles, Sri Lanka and Vietnam. 12 ये हो गए and 1 India. Total कितने हो गए? 13 nations. They are participating. Clear? ये याद रखना है. तो बेसिकली अब इसको याद कैसे रखें, है ना, कि सर कैसे याद रहेगा? साउथ एशिया, कंट्रीज आर फ्रॉम साउथ एशिया, साउथ ईस्ट एशिया एंड इंडियन ओशन आइलैंड कंट्रीज. बस सिंपल वे में, कंट्रीज आर फ्रॉम साउथ एशिया, साउथ ईस्ट एशिया and Indian Ocean island countries. Indian Ocean island countries. Fine. This is the relevance. Now, what is the main aim of Pragati 2026? The main aim, the exercise is not about war against any country, first of all. It is about learning to work together. First, improve coordination in joint operation. Clear? Like different armies, they often have different communication system, different tactics होती है ना, different command structure. That is why there is a need for coordination in joint operation. Clear? Second is identify common areas of cooperation. Now, what are the common areas of cooperation? Like countries, they may face similar threats. है ना, कैसे similar threats है? Like terrorism, piracy, insurgency, etc. These kind of threats are there. Humanitarian emergencies are there. Maritime insecurity is also there. Cross-border crime, है ना. So overall, this is considered as to find out the shared solutions. Basically, they are trying to find out shared solutions. Fine. Then third is share best practices. See, every military develops expertise. Every military. समझ में आ रहा है? For example, हो सकता है one country may have strong jungle warfare skills. Other country may excel in surveillance or logistics. है ना, तो दोनों को एक दूसरे से सीखना है. This is called as knowledge sharing classroom for armies. Fine. And the last thing is build closer military to military ties. As you can see, build closer military to military ties. Fine. See, diplomacy is not only when foreign ministers they meet. Clear? Armies also build trust. Army वाले भी क्या करते हैं? Trust build करते हैं. So when the soldiers they are trained together, then communication improves, then misunderstanding reduces, and then confidence and partnership also grow. Fine. So this is also called as defense diplomacy. है ना? We can call it as defense Diplomacy. Fine. Okay. Next is what happens during the exercise. Pragati lasts 2 weeks and it includes several training activities. First, joint planning exercises. It is like strategy room where military teams, they design operations like how to move troops, how to share intelligence, how to respond to threats. Jointly they do these things. So it is called as planning coordination. Second, tactical level drills. These are ground level practical exercises. Soldiers, they practice movement, ambush response, rescue operation and also combat coordination. इससे क्या होगा? This actually improve the real time battlefield cooperation. Then coordinated operation. This is the full level teamwork stage. इसको कहा जाता है. Clear? Here, different armies, they operate together as one force and the goal is interoperability. अब interoperability ये almost हर exercise में होता है. Clear? कहने का मतलब यह है द एबिलिटी ऑफ डिफरेंट आर्मीज और डिफरेंट मिलिट्रीज टू ऑपरेट टुगेदर इफेक्टिवली. समझ में आ रहा है? दैट इज कॉल्ड एज इंट्रोपरेबिलिटी. क्लियर? ये याद रखिएगा. डिफरेंट ब्रांड्स ऑफ, इस तरीके से समझ लो, डिफरेंट ब्रांड्स ऑफ स्मार्टफोन है बट दे आर यूजिंग द सेम वाईफाई नेटवर्क. क्लियर? दैट इज कॉल्ड एज इंट्रोपरेबिलिटी. देन द स्पेशल फोकस is on counter-terrorism in jungle and semi-mountain terrain because many regional security challenges are there and they occur in forest, hills and difficult terrain. Clear? Acha. There are various examples like insurgency zones हैं Southeast Asia and Northeast में, terrorist hideouts, remote border region. So in this scenario, troops, they practice jungle warfare, surveillance, coordinated counter terror operations and movement in difficult terrain. So Meghalaya, it provide ideal condition for this. This much is clear to all of you. So why is Pragati 2026 strategically important? First, it is strengthening the regional defense cooperation. Clear? Why? Because India is actually positioning itself as a security partner in Indian Ocean as well as Indo-Pacific. Second, shared response to modern security challenges. Today the threats are often transnational, है ना? आज transnational threats हैं. Transnational threats कैसे? Terrorism, piracy, trafficking, cyber link threats are there, है ना? Humanitarian disaster. And remember this thing, no country can handle these threats alone. So Pragati actually through this, it actually encourages collective security. Fine. Then third is boosting India's strategic presence by hosting multinational exercises. India strengthen diplomatic influence, defense partnerships and regional leadership. This is actually aligned with India's neighborhood first and Indo-Pacific outlook. समझ में आ रहा है? And then India also showcasing Atmanirbhar Bharat in defense. This is another important feature. Pragati highlights India's indigenous defense capabilities. Clear? Which means India actually showcases equipment and systems under Atmanirbhar Bharat. Clear? तो इंडिया क्या चाहता है? इंडिया एक्चुअली वांट टू मूव फ्रॉम बीइंग मेनली अ डिफेंस इंपोर्टर टू बिकमिंग अ डिफेंस प्रोड्यूसर एज वेल एज डिफेंस पार्टनर. दैट इज द पॉलिसी ऑफ इंडिया. Fine. So now we'll practice some questions. With reference to Pragati 2026, consider the following statement. First, Pragati 2026 is a naval exercise. This is wrong. It is the multinational military exercise, not naval exercise. Second, exercise include tactical level drills and coordinated operation aimed at improving interoperability among participating armies. This is correct. Third, counter-terrorism operation in semi-mountainous and jungle terrain. They form part of exercise. This is also correct. So, how many correct statements are there? 2 and 3. Option B. Clear? Next is consider the following countries: Bhutan, Maldives, Philippines, Thailand and Seychelles. How many have participated in Pragati 2026? Bhutan was there, Maldives was there, Philippines was there, Seychelles was there. Thailand was not a part of this exercise. So only 4. Option C. Clear? Only 4. So this is all about your last week important topics in current affairs from history and IR. I hope this much is clear to all of you. है ना? So practice these questions, and the PPTs are already uploaded on Telegram group of Legacy IAS Academy. Thank you so much.